Tillman, a retired school engineer from Bethune Academy. Bernice Wiggins, a retired teacher from Carver Academy of Math and Science. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Before we move to our agenda, the President will remind the Board and the public that, in accordance with Board Rule 1.09, regular items of business, there will be no reports of standing committees this month. Instead, the Board will give public hearing on the regular items of business only. We have no virtual speakers tonight. Members of the audience who wish to speak are asked to fill out a speaker slip and bring it to our Secretary, Ms. Koala. For the sake of fairness and to give everyone a chance to speak, the Chair reserves the right to limit the length of time allowed to any one speaker. Written testimony will be accepted for transmittal to the Board. Send this testimony to the Office of Board Governance, P.O. Box 2181, Milwaukee, Wisconsin 53201-2181, or fax to 414-475-8071, or email it to governance@milwaukee.k12.wi.us. Just as a reminder, Robert's Rules of Order dictate that all comments should be directed to the chair of the committee. Also, any questions or requests, including those from the public, committee members, or the administration, are to be directed toward the chair, who will determine the most efficient way to address them. Please be respectful to the democratic process adhered to by the Board for the safety of all and to ensure the good order of the meeting. Harassment or intimidation tactics of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who continues to yell or disrupt the meeting will be told to leave and will be escorted from the meeting and not allowed to return. Anyone ejected from the meeting may continue to listen to the meeting or access the agenda items online. Also, no one other than members of the Board, designated staff, and those who have been invited to present or participated in items of business will be allowed on stage before, during, or after meetings of the Board and its committees. Also, for our listening audience, if you wish to access this evening's agenda items and attachments online, you may do so by visiting the meetings, agendas, and minutes page of the MPS website and choosing online agendas. Now let us begin, Madam Secretary. What is the first item of business?
The first item of business is action on the minutes of the March 2024 special and regular meetings of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
Do any members of the Board have corrections for the minutes of March 2024? If there are no corrections, the minutes are approved as read. Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the Superintendent?
Madam President, we have one communication from the Superintendent. That is the monthly report with possible action from the Superintendent of Schools. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the administration please present this report?
Good evening, President Herndon and members of the Board. Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. This month, I would like to lift a few items that I have in my monthly report that is attached. First of all, this month we recognize National Assistant Principals Week, honoring the vital role that assistant principals play in the Milwaukee Public Schools. Our assistant principals work with students, teachers, and families, supporting academic success, safety, and positive school environment. We recognize and appreciate the invaluable contributions to this district and the schools in which they serve. Also want to recognize we've been celebrating 5 of our students as well as 10 of our teachers receiving scholarships and awards from the 2024 Herb Cole Education Foundation. Each of the 5 students was granted $10,000 for higher education. Additionally, 10 teachers were honored with the Teacher Fellowship Award, receiving $6,000 each for their exceptional dedication and leadership in the classroom. MPS is also for being recognized as hosting its 8th annual Unsell World Fair, where students from 17 schools and grades 4 through 8 showcase projects and performances highlighting the United Nations mission. The projects and performances were outstanding and left the audience mesmerized. MPS students is competing in spellbinding battles on April 13th, the 20th, and the 27th to determine the district's top speller. And we ask that you please come and show support for our students. Spectators are invited to witness the wonderful things that are happening with our students as the students compete for that sought-after B trophy. So we want to make sure that they are supported there. And also on April 17th of 2024, Milwaukee Public Schools Career and Technical Education Department held the 16th annual Spring STEM Partnership Showcase. Students from 27 schools presented in the showcase. It's showing their success and the educational partnerships and various STEM programs offering in the Milwaukee Public Schools. The support of our partners has been invaluable, providing opportunities for students to explore STEM fields and even find career paths within the companies. I will close by reminding you to join us for the historical 100th year anniversary of the MPS Biannual Music Festival on May 1st and 2nd at UW Panther Arena. This concludes my report. However, you will find my report attached, and if there's further questions, I sit ready and prepared to answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board wish to make any comments at this time? Seeing none, I'll move ahead. Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the Office of Board Governance?
Madam President, there is one communication from the Office of Board Governance. That is the monthly report with possible action on legislative activities affecting MPS. This is an informational item, and although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the Office of Board Governance please present this report?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Thiel is here to give that report.
President Herndon, members of the board, Chris Thiel, Office of Governmental Relations for MPS. This week, or this month rather, just as a reminder to the public, the legislative session at the state level has come to an end. We are now in a cycle where we will see campaigning as we head toward November, and then the new session will be seated probably January 15th of 2025. So we're not currently in session, and the state is not currently taking any action. But we are in a process where already we're beginning the discussion about what the state needs to see in the next state budget. In October, most state departments, including the Department of Public Instruction, will put together a budget proposal that will go to the governor's office, and then the governor usually comes out with his budget in the first week of February. So given the many needs of the state and kind of given the situation we're in at the school district level statewide, those discussions have begun, and I think it's an educational process largely for a lot of people. We've just experienced our own referendum process, and it's been interesting to see, and so have many other districts. Some were successful, some were not. And I think there's great concern for those districts where they were not able to be successful. And they're considering whether or not to go back in November. And the reason all those districts are, and it's been very interesting to see since that referendum date, additional information come out. The Wisconsin Policy Forum, for instance, pointed out that we may see over 150 districts go to referendum because of inadequate funding from the state of Wisconsin. Not only go to referendum, but go to operational referendum to simply provide the resources for students, because as you know that we have said repeatedly, for 16 years, the state of Wisconsin has not allowed per pupil funding to simply keep pace with inflation. So every single school district is facing that reality. And yesterday, there was another report from the Wisconsin Policy Forum, which I think was very interesting and factual and well done, but ironic because it reflected upon the state's surplus and the fact that the state of Wisconsin has sitting on the shelf, depending on the week as things go by, somewhere in the neighborhood of $4 to $5 to $6 billion with a B that it is not spending on school districts or early childhood programs or on a university system or on local roads or on other things that we know our communities need. So it's been very difficult, I think, for people to say that the state has a surplus when that dramatic level of underfunding continues to go on. And out of 421 school districts in the state, we're going to see perhaps over 150 go to referendum. So a couple of pieces of information in different ways that we're going to talk about and continue to kind of bring forward to make sure that there's an understanding include the fact that our state is in fact last or near last in the nation for support for students with disabilities. We have a reimbursement rate of 33% for students with disabilities, which means school districts across the state have to move funds to make sure that we're putting forward the resources to support our students as necessary. We also have a system that's frankly discriminatory, where if you're in the special needs scholarship program, if you're a private school, you get at least 90% reimbursement if you're in one of those settings, whereas public school students only get 33%. There's a clear issue there that needs to be resolved. And we also had a report from the Department of Public Instruction over these last 2 weeks that demonstrates again that there is a dramatic need for the state to move dramatically and swiftly to make sure that we have enough teachers for our students in the state of Wisconsin. Department of Public Instruction put out a report showing that, number one, we don't have enough teachers. Number two, we have very significant needs statewide in specific areas. And as we have discussed in the past, in 2011, the state of Wisconsin dramatically raised the bar for what it means to be proficient in terms of student performance, and every year since has lowered funding, and frankly, teacher compensation has also declined year after year. That's not a recipe for success when those two things are going in opposite directions. So we are beginning to discuss with our advocacy partners across the state, Wisconsin Rural Schools Alliance, Southeastern Wisconsin Schools Alliance, Wisconsin Association of School Boards, others, all of our partners. How do we raise these issues up and make sure that we're not in the situation next year where so many school districts feel that they have to go forward to referendum because we have this dynamic in the state, as was demonstrated again, because there is now a challenge to the governor's power. As you may remember in the last state budget, there's a lot of kind of dramatic talk about this veto that would put a $325 per pupil adjustment in the budget each year for 400 years. And as we've discussed in the past, $325 per pupil doesn't even keep pace with inflation at this point. So we have to figure out how we're going to fund our schools in a more appropriate manner than we have in the recent past. There's some attachments in the presentation this evening that again lay out the state's constitutional responsibility in this area and what the state legislature has recommended to itself, not only in just general funding, but to support students in poverty, students with disabilities, and we're also unfortunately last in the nation in funding for English learners as a state. So we're moving that forward. We're going to continue to raise those issues as they come up and continue to brief the board as new research comes forward just to kind of shine a spotlight on those issues. So that's my report. Happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you. Does any of the board members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director O'Halloran.
Thank you, President Herndon. I know we have new maps, and I was just wondering if those are available online so that if people's districts might have changed. I think I'm still in the same district, but I think within the Milwaukee area there might have been some realignments. So I just, as we move into November, just to ensure that people have all the information that they would need.
President Herndon, Director O'Halloran, I have not looked specifically, but I think we are in a moment where those website resources have been updated. to the maps, new maps, so people can have an understanding how that affects them.
Director Jackson.
Excuse me. So just projecting on the future financial cliff, however we want to word it, there's another possibility of another referendum down the line?
President Herndon and Director Jackson, I think, well, for MPS specifically, I think the way that our referendum moves forward with that 4-year phase-in, and then with that $325 per pupil adjustment that is now there, even though it doesn't keep pace with the rate of inflation. And what I would anticipate, or what we would kind of hope for in terms of state action, that they would learn a lesson and not put districts in this situation. The hope would be that we're in a situation where we would not have to consider a referendum for a good period of time. But yeah, I would point people to, I guess, the Forward Analytics report. There's a group called Forward Analytics that people could look up that's talked about the fact that over the last 20 years, we have in fact seen districts go to referendum once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, or more. I don't think anybody thinks that's a healthy cycle, and that the state needs to take action to make sure that we're not in that position. And frankly, if the state would move and fund special education at a 90% reimbursement rate, I think a lot of districts would be taken out of the position of having to go to referendum. So the answer is hopefully not, I guess, but it's very much based on what the state decides to do and then how local districts have to react.
Okay.
Thank you. Director Leonard.
So I'm sort of going to ride off of that with regards to the special ed reimbursement rate. So from just conversations with different legislators, including Mr. Kitchens, that is a direction that they're telling us to go into, is to work hard to make sure we change that formula. From your position and the experience you have, how much of a heavy lift is that going to be? Because I just sort of foresee it not being, I don't see it as being legal, I guess, to reimburse, voucher schools at 90% or more who don't really have to provide services, as they literally tell people, where at the same time we are required to provide, services, and we only get 33% reimbursement. So to me, I can't even find that as a constitutionally relevant position. But just from your experience, where do we really stand on that?
Excuse me, Mr. Thiel, could you speak closer into the mic so that everyone can hear? It sounded a little soft. Thank you.
President Herndon, my apologies. All right, I apologize. I will speak up. President Herndon, Director Leonard, to your question about the special education piece, I think the one thing that is positive is that this has a direct impact on all school districts. So all 421 school districts are in a situation where they were in lockstep and saying this has to be addressed because this would financially improve the situation for everyone and allow us to provide service to all students in a better way. So that's the positive. In terms of your question about this unique situation between public schools and private schools in the state of Wisconsin, when Dr. Posley and I were out at the Council of Great City Schools last month and described different policy situations at the state level, we asked anybody to raise their hand who's got a similar situation that we do, described it. There was a kind of a gasp in the room, and nobody else raised their hand. So this is unique to Wisconsin, this disparity between, and frankly, it's closer to 100% reimbursement. We say 90% to be conservative, but I don't think any other state has that situation. And then in terms of just moving this funding forward, there have been repeated attempts to raise this issue. So I would not want to lead anyone to believe that this is a situation where we can snap our fingers and get it done. This is a decades-long effort to this point. We had dropped down to 25% reimbursement, actually, several years back, and now moved to 33. And what we hear from the state is, well, that would take a significant amount of resources to do that. And the reply that the districts have is, we know because we're paying it. the state used to reimburse at a nearly 70% rate. So it's not setting a precedent to ask the state to go back up closer to what it used to do. It's simply kind of passed the buck on, unfortunately, to the local school district. So that's part of the education and advocacy effort, and hopefully continue to talk about it in different ways to drive the point home. But I think one of the things we do run into is, one, people can't believe it, and then two, you have to explain it again. And then once they get there, we have more people stepping forward and saying to the state capitol, hey, we need to get this fixed.
And
Any follow-up?
just a really quick follow-up, and I just need clarification for myself. I am under the impression that that money really directly comes from the federal government when it comes to our special ed students. Am I understanding that correctly, or is that just a...
There is some confusion there because there are two sources of funds. What happens is that there is IDEA at the federal level, which is special education funding that frankly only provides about 11% support. And what the state does is say, okay, so this federal money has come in, you've received that 11%. Now, of the remaining amount, we will reimburse you 33%. And because, frankly, some have argued that the federal government should reimburse closer to 40%, we agree. Senator Baldwin actually has a bill out there at the federal level to do that. That would benefit the state. It would make it, frankly, more affordable at the state level. But ultimately, this is a state-level responsibility. The state constitution demands that students with disabilities be supported. And so sometimes you will hear somebody say, well, you should ask the federal government for more money. We're happy to do that, but it is the state's direct responsibility to get this done. And that's another thing we need to help clarify for people.
Thank you.
Director Zumber.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. I know you mentioned the disparities for English learner funding as well. Do you know, I know there was talk, Representative Kitchens that was considering a trailer bill for Act 20 for, to address some of the concerns around testing for English learners. Do you know if there's been any movement on that?
President Herndon, Director Zambor. We didn't see a full trailer bill. I think the Department of Public Instruction is working through its rules flexibility on that front because that issue was, everybody was very much made aware of the lack of fairness there in terms of that reading initiative and putting forward an assessment that all students did not have access to. I don't know the final disposition of that, but DPI was using its authority to try to make sure that that could be taken care of. But that was an issue. That was, DPI is trying to do its part, but that was a state legislative issue that they're now trying to attend to. So, you know, there's 4, 5, 6 billion sitting at the state level. The state could call itself back into session and put that money into general aid to support schools. So, but we don't anticipate them coming back again until January 25.
Thank you. Are there any more comments from the board directors? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, are there any reports or communications from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency?
Madam President, there are two communications from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. The first is the monthly report with possible action on activities within the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. This is an informational item. Although it has been noticed for possible action, no action is required.
Would the Office of Accountability and Efficiency please present this item?
Thank you, Chair Herndon. Matt Chasen, Office of Accountability and Efficiency. That report is before you. I'll briefly highlight that our audit services area has already started to engage the student services area regarding the expulsion audit that this board approved with recent board action. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does the board wish to make comments or ask questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, what is the next communication, please?
The next communication is action on a request to retire to closed session to confer with legal counsel relative to litigation in which the board is or is likely to become involved. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed.
If there are no objection, this item will be deferred.
all need to be removed.
Madam President, the next item is action on the reports of independent hearing officers of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors, student expulsions.
The chair will entertain a motion to accept, modify, or reject the reports of the independent hearing officers of the dates and times listed in our agenda. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Madam Chair, we need a motion.
Could we have a motion, please? Go ahead, Director O'Halloran.
I move we approve the 4 reports of the independent hearing officers as attached.
Could we have a second, please?
Second?
Director Garcia,
Second?
will the secretary please call the roll?
The motion by Director O'Halloran was to approve the reports of the independent hearing officers of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors. On that motion, Director Carr.
Abstain.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul-Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Seamson.
Aye.
Director Zombor.
Aye.
And President Herndon.
Aye,
That's 8 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion passes.
thank you. As stated earlier, in accordance with Board Rule 1.09, there will be no reports of standing committees this month. Therefore, the board will now move on to the regular items of business. Madam Secretary, what is the first item?
Item 1 is action on the monthly personnel matters, action on classified personnel transactions, action on certificated appointments, action on leaves of absence, report on certificated resignations and classified retirements, and the affirmative action report. The recommendation is that the board approve the promotions, appointments, and leaves as listed in the attachments to the item to be effective upon approval by the board.
Will the administration please present the item?
President Herndon and members of the board, Keith Posley, Superintendent of Schools. We are asking for your approval of the monthly personnel and finance and reporting items before you. Adrian Matalini, Chief Human Resources Officer, is here with me this evening, and between the two of us, we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Do members of the public wish to make comments or ask questions? Go ahead, Madam Secretary.
Madam Chair, we do have a couple of speaker slips.
Okay, moving right ahead. We have Deb Keither. Would you come forth, please?
Hi, Deb Keither, Kuether, and I'm speaking because it is very ironic. We have been watching the production of these lists, employees, all these hires, all these administrators, these 6-figure administrators that you hire, where you have 5, 6 in a school building, and you can't even fill the classrooms that are in front of the children. And we're wondering why in the world would you continue to have pages and pages of new employees at such high rates when you cannot fill the classrooms with the students that are waiting for teachers for years. Some of them have not had teachers for years. You have had subs. Those administrators and those LTEs are taking positions from Milwaukee parents and families, and they are unable to be employed because you are paying people who have already retired and are getting a second job opportunity through your LTE. And you are cutting, the very first order of business that you did was you removed trauma specialists in 53206. You sat here as a team and you made a resolution and you reneged on that resolution the first opportunity you had. This board is shameful, and you have all been served tonight, by the way.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mike, is it DeVell?
Hi, I'm merely here to announce to you, Mr. Posley, Mrs. Matalini, Mr. Herndon, Mr. Chasen, you have been legally served and you are compelled to appear on May 6th, the legal process.
Madam President,
You will
need
be
to
held in
speak to the
contempt if
item.
you fail to appear,
We need to
as you
speak to the
previously
item at hand, Madam President. We cannot allow testimony that is not on the item at hand.
Thank you very much. What is the pleasure of the board with respect to this item?
Anything else?
Director Zomber.
Thank you, Chair Herndon. I move approval of the monthly personnel matters.
Could we have a second, please? Director Simpson.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On the motion by Director Zombor to approve the administration's recommendations relative to the monthly personnel matters, Director Carr?
Abstain.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Jackson?
Abstain.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
Director Zombor?
Aye.
And President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 7 ayes, 2 abstentions. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 2, action on recommended administrative appointments, promotions, reassignments, and reclassifications, salary increases and decreases, and limited term employment, LTE contracts exceeding 60 days. The recommendation is that the board approve the promotions, appointments, leaves, and limited term employment contracts as listed in the attachments to the item to be effective upon approval by the board.
Will the administration please present this item?
President Herndon and members of the board, we are requesting your approval of this item as it outlines this month's administrative appointments, promotions, reclassifications, salary adjustments, and LTE contracts. I have with me Adria Matalini, Chief Human Resources Officer, and we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Do board members wish to make comments or ask questions? Being none, what is the pleasure of the board with respect to this item? Director Simpson,
I move approval of administration's recommendation.
second, please. Director Zomber.
I second.
If there's no further discussion, will the secretary please call the roll?
On the motion by Director Simpson to approve the administration's recommendations, Director Carr?
Abstain.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Jackson?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Simpson?
Aye.
Director Zombor?
Aye.
And President Herndon.
Thank you.
Your vote, President Herndon?
Your vote.
Aye.
That's 8 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 3, action on monthly finance matters, authorization to make purchases, report on change orders in excess of $25,000, acceptance of the report on revenues and expenses, monthly expenditure control report, report on budget transfers, report on contracts under $50,000 and their cumulative totals, and the acceptance of donations. The recommendation is that the board, 1, authorize the purchases, and 2, accept the donations as listed in the attachments with appropriate acknowledgement to be made on behalf of the board.
Will the administration please present this item?
President Herndon and members of the board, this evening, we're asking your approval of the monthly finance matters before you. President Herndon and members of the board, this evening, we're asking for your approval of the monthly finance matters before you. I have with me Rochelle Johnson-Bent, Procurement and Risk Management Services, and we are prepared to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Do board members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Simpson.
Not a question, just a comment. Under the grants, I just wanted to sort of give a shout out to Senator Baldwin for the generous donation for expansion of the Success Center, and I'm just looking forward to hear more details and information about that expansion as we move forward.
Any more board directors wish to make comments?
And with that, I can move that we accept administration's recommendation.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director Simpson to approve the administration's recommendations, Director Carr?
Abstain.
Director Garcia?
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi?
Aye.
Director Jackson?
Aye.
Director Leonard?
Aye.
Director O'Halloran?
Aye.
Director Seamson,
Aye.
Director Zombor,
Aye.
and President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 8 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 4, action on the award of professional services contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the professional services contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Will the administration please present this item?
President Herndon and members of the board, this evening, we're asking for your approval of the professional services contracts that are before you. I have the team here with me this evening, and we're prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Do board members wish to make comments or ask questions? Madam Secretary, do we have any speaker slips?
Madam President, we have no speaker slips on this item.
What is the pleasure of the board with respect to this item? I don't know which one of you were first. Director Jackson,
I make a motion that we accept the award of professional service contracts.
second. Director Garcia,
I second.
thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On the motion by Director Jackson to approve the administration's recommendations relative to the award of professional services contracts. Director Carr,
Abstain.
Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Seamson,
Aye.
Director Zombor,
Aye.
and President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 8 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 5, action on the award of exception to bid contracts. The recommendation is that the board authorize the exceptions to bid contracts as set forth in the attachments to this item.
Will the administration please present this item?
President Herndon and members of the board, we're asking your approval of this month's exception to bid contracts. The administration is prepared to answer any questions that you may have at this time. Thank you.
Do board members wish to make comments or ask questions? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, are there members of the public that wish to speak?
Madam President, we have no request to speak on this item.
What is the pleasure of the board with respect to this item? Director Jackson,
I make a motion that we accept the exception of bid contracts.
second, please.
Second.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Second.
thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
On the motion by Director Jackson to approve the administration's recommendations relative to the exception to bid contracts. Director Carr,
Abstain.
Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Seamson,
Aye.
Director Zombor,
Aye.
and President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 8 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 6, action on monthly facilities matters. The FMS award of construction, professional services, and material purchase recommendations. The recommendation is that the board approve the construction contracts, professional services contract, and material purchases.
Will the administration please present this item?
President Herndon and members of the board, we're asking for your approval of this month's facilities matters as relates to awards of construction, professional services, and materials purchased and recommendations. Sean Kane, Senior Director of Facilities and Maintenance Services, is here with me this evening to report out on this item, and following, we'll be prepared to answer any questions that you may have in regards to this item. Sean?
Do board members wish to make comments or ask questions on this item?
President Herndon, members of the board, Sean Kane, Senior Director for Facilities Maintenance Services. As Dr. Posey indicated, I'll be able to answer any questions if you have the things that we're looking forward to for a recommendation.
Thank you. Board members, do you wish to ask questions or make comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, do we have any slips from the public?
Madam President, there are no requests to speak on this item.
Okay, with that, what is the pleasure of the board with respect to this item? Director O'Halloran,
I move approval of the attached construction contracts, professional services contracts, and material purchases.
could I have a second, please? Director Jackson,
I second.
thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
On the motion by Director O'Halloran to approve the administration's recommendations relative to the monthly facilities matters, Director Carr,
Abstain.
Director Garcia,
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi,
Aye.
Director Jackson,
Aye.
Director Leonard,
Aye.
Director O'Halloran,
Aye.
Director Seamson,
Aye.
Director Zombor,
Aye.
and President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 8 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is item 7, consideration of and possible action on revisions to the structure of the board's standing committees. The recommendation is that the board determine how it wishes to proceed.
Will the Office of Board Governance please present this item?
Thank you, Madam President. Members, last month, the board gave consideration to possible changes to the structure of its committees. The board directed the Office of Board Governance to bring back possible options for restructure, as well as some samples of how other school boards structure their work. Attached to the item tonight on the agenda are some examples of what other districts do. We looked at the 5 largest school districts in Wisconsin, aside from MPS. We have samples of 5 member districts of the Council of Great City Schools, and 5 districts close to MPS in terms of their enrollment numbers. If you had a chance to review those samples, you'll see the way other board districts structure their work is kind of all over the map. Some boards do their work in committees, like you do. We saw committees of anywhere from 3 to 7. Other boards hold 1 monthly workshop or meet as a committee of the whole, and then advance all items to a monthly meeting. Also attached are some options for the board to consider. You'll see that all options presented suggest that PACE move to meeting in alternate months. It was apparent from the last discussion that you don't want the frequency of recurring items that go to PACE to be interrupted, so we took a look at those regular items. There are 3 items that come annually, 2 that come quarterly, and 1 that comes every other month. So if you were to transition PACE to meeting every other month, there would be no interruption to the frequency of those recurring items. We also looked at PACE agendas for the last 5 years, and PACE has had an average of only 2 to 3 items coming per month. In consultation with the administration, we feel that transitioning PACE to every other month would make for more robust agendas. And the other main consideration is the project to conduct the policy review work. Again, in consultation with the administration, we felt it would be really helpful to know in advance how often LRP will meet. This will help us set deadlines and benchmark the work more efficiently. One option that wasn't discussed last month was the option of having LRP become a committee of a whole, similar to SPB, where all 9 members would be members of LRP, meeting at whatever frequency the board determines, or remaining a meeting that meets at the call of the chair, but with all 9 members on LRP, that would allow every member to participate in that policy review project. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Do board members wish to make comments or ask questions? Director Zombor.
Thank you. Would the Office of Board Governance be able, so I'll just say that I think we definitely need to increase the frequency of LRP this next year. So I'm in favor of LRP meeting more frequently. So I do think option 1 would allow for that while also keeping the recurring PACE items on the agenda. However, the one thing I worry about is if LRP meets every other month instead of at the call of the chair and we have something that is urgent, can we allow the policy review to be handled by a committee at the board president's discretion, so that in the event something comes up and we need to have an LRP meeting sooner than every other month, we still have the ability, or we need to review a policy, we still have the ability for the president to assign it to one of the committees that is meeting.
Madam President, Director Zombor, members, the chairs of the respective committees can call meetings beyond what you approve in your preliminary calendar. It's also possible for a chair to call more than one meeting in a month. So certainly if there was a critical item that needed to be discussed, it could be referred to committee, or if it's not something that needs to be referred to committee, the chair could certainly ask for an item to be brought forward.
Okay, any more responses? Go ahead, please.
As the current chair of the Parent and Community Engagement Committee, I think that it is important that we keep that committee. I know that being the chair this year, there is so much more that we can do. I know that I have made requests that have not been honored. And I also know that our community is starving for those partnerships. I actually think that will help sustain our district. So I don't think it's a matter of not being able to fill the committee agendas and make use of that time. I think the onus falls on the administration to do more as it pertains to parent and community engagement. So I would actually ask that we refer that back to the committee to deliberate more and hear from the parents and the community partners.
So the last time we talked about this, we had said that this was an opportunity for us to really rethink committee structure and also talk about committee agendas. And so I think that this work is still a little bit half-baked, and we need to think more intentionally about what does it look like to have an agenda that has all the items that are reoccurring in a year. Are we really, SASE, we've talked about how it has 12, 13 agenda items. That's a lot to ask anyone to stay through if they have a particular item. And I'm wondering, have we really thought about, for instance, again, I've brought up Elmbrook, they have a teaching and learning committee, that focuses on reading, math, and writing. I'm still wondering if there's room for us to think about if this is the best committee structure. I also agree that we need a reoccurring PACE meeting every month. So I'm just hoping that we can go back and still get some more optionality for what we're bringing forward.
Madam President, Director Gokul-Gandhi, so you certainly aren't limited to the committees that you have right now and their respective charges. You can change that up however you see fit, which could include establishing new committees, merging committees, whatever this board deems necessary as far as how you want to structure your work. I guess I can only advise you so far. I mean, it's the work of the board, so it would, I would need some more input from the board as far as how you want to divide that work up.
Thank you. Are there any more board responses? Director Garcia.
Yeah, I have to agree. Looking back into the conversations that we've had in regards to how do we really restructure this for the purpose of having more robust conversations among board members, but really with the intent of creating topics that are relevant to what we are hearing from our constituents. I think that this right here is not necessarily reflective of the topics that can be included. I know that we have been presented with a couple options of other school districts that are able to look at topics and really schedule whatever committee is related to that topic. I think that's, a way that we can really address these needs that are coming up in a way that is being allotted into this time that we are being built. My concern is that, when we're looking at the PACE committee, I have also served as the chair for that committee the first year that I got elected, and I think that it's one of the most important committees. And I just don't know from an optics perspective, if moving into business every other month, I would just worry about what pathways can be created for parents and community to really engage with us in a public forum. So if we can just think a little bit more creatively, if we do move into a bi-monthly, how can we build in that constituency opportunity for them to, come to us in a public stage?
Thank you. Any more? Director Simpson?
Yeah, just a question for Office of Board Governance. So, I know there's like the practical part of this where we set, the calendar and things like that. Is there what kind of wiggle room do we have for further discussion to be had?
Madam President, members, so to be clear, there's no requirement to do anything at this point as far as changing your committees. If you want to think about it and resurrect this issue in the future, this is just a convenient time to do it because you'll be planning your calendar for the next year. But there's no requirement that you do so. As far as items that might come forward and the current charges of the committees, just something to clarify, most items are initiated by the administration based on, the business needs of the district and that type of thing. But individual chairs of committees can certainly call for items to come forward. So if you have topics that you want to come forward that are not initiated by your executive officers, you can talk to the chair of a committee and initiate items that way.
Director Simpson?
Just to follow up to that. So I know that's sort of like what kind of, move this to the, where we are this evening is that there is the real issue of addressing the policies, that we need to kind of like update and work on. So, I don't know if there is a way to continue to keep the schedule that we currently have, since I feel like we're not really at a place, I feel like this is work to be done and that we aren't at a place to make a decision on a revamp. I feel like we just don't have the information. I'm wondering if there's a way to sort of keep the schedule for this year, continue to work on ways to revamp it and align it with the strategic plan better, but increase the number of times that LRP meets, to make that a committee and have it meet monthly, but keep the current structure. I don't know.
Madam President, the item was noticed for possible action, so you don't need to make a motion on the item at this time. If you do want to direct a specific number of LRP items, that could be your motion, and then as far as possibly changing anything else, that can come up in the future.
Okay, so I have slips from the public at this time.
Madam President, it looked like Director Carr.
Oh, sorry, Director Carr.
I just wanted to point our attention to, and I think this is an opportune time to really talk about policies and procedures. Administrative Policy 1.03 is a parent empowerment policy. So I wonder if this is an opportunity to actually engage and bring our parents and our community partners in to help us re-envision and restructure that committee.
So, excuse me, please. So you were free to make a motion on that, however you'd like to do it?
I made a motion. I asked that we send it back to committee or perhaps discuss it at a later time, which I will have a proposal to the Office of Board Governance to start that structure.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor at this time. In addition, we have speaker slips. If we'd like to go through those, please.
The motion would require a second for discussion.
Okay, could we have a second, please?
I second the motion.
Second by Director Jackson. Okay.
We can go to speakers now, Madam
I
President.
have the first speaker slip, Teron Edwards. Could you come forth, please?
Are you going to carry the motion?
You sure? It sounds like they want to know the motion is going to carry before I say anything, right? Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, I'll make it brief. My name is Teron Edwards. Milwaukee resident. I'm the president and founder of Fathers Making Progress.
All right,
We're-
all right.
We're a community-based movement that have operated in this community for over 15 years, and we basically believe in creating stronger families, through creating stronger fathers, through creating stronger communities. I just wanted to speak a little bit to the, I'm totally against, and as you probably can hear from, the folks here, I'm totally against the parent, and community engagement committee being dissolved or removed or anything, their pace. If anything, I guess with the motion that's been presented, like, I, amongst many other people here, are kind of feeling unheard, and I know I can only speak for myself, and, that's what I'm up here to do, but I'll tell you, just even on behalf of our organization, like, I'll say that, our organization, amongst many others that are here, we're here, and we're willing to be at the table to be a part of that realignment, and, bridge these gaps between, parents and the school board. I mean, we're here for it, just call on us and give us a chance, and that's all I want to say. I just want to make sure that, our children and our community is really being considered with how the board and the people here are moving, and as you can hear, I think folks are just not feeling heard, and I just leave with that. Thank you.
Sorry, Deb Keither, please.
All right, Deb.
Deb Keither, Kuether, and I'm going to codify what the speaker and many of the individuals that are in the audience here today from the community have been saying, which is, you have not been listening. We have been knocking on your door for a long time. We have been right here waiting to speak to you. We have words that we have ideas. We have solutions. We have feedback. We have involvement. We have organization. We have been waiting to talk to you for a long time. We have been showing up. We have been looking for you. You have walked us out. You have locked us out. You have not given us the time of day. You have rolled your eyes at us. You have muted us. And you don't want to hear. And now your suggestion for increased community involvement is to cut in half the Parent and Community Engagement Board. That makes absolutely no sense. You are going in reverse, and you are not making gains, and you are further endorsing to the community that you don't have time for them. And then you have the audacity to say that you stand for their children. You are making decisions with billions of dollars for their children, and they want to be heard. So I hope you give them the time and you don't cut them off, and you give thought. When you go back and vote, you give thought. These are not just hollow words. Your resolutions are not just hollow. They have action behind them, action that makes you have to do uncomfortable things with your colleagues that are sitting here with the gavel. You need to tell them what the real deal is. And our families are here, so thank you.
Thank you. Sheila Dodd, please.
I do have some joy.
Could you
Sheila,
state your
that's-
first name and spell your last name?
Shelia, Dodd, Delta, Omega, Delta, Delta. The pace. We have people on this board that have children. We have people on this board that are mothers. We have people on this board that have been elected into a position that our boys got you here. Now you have the audacity to use that voice we gave you against us. Yes. That doesn't make sense. If you don't understand our children, come here. Come here. You want to work together, right? Keith Posley, Director, Superintendent. Keith Posley. You want to work together? PACE. Why do you want to get rid of it? Why? Doesn't make sense. Does it make sense? I want you to answer me.
You don't answer.
Yeah, you do. You do. Because you don't see yourselves. You don't see yourselves. We see you. Thank you, Aisha Carr. We voted her in for us. Now you want to call her out? We here. Call us out. Call us out, because we're calling you out. Now, Keith Posley, Mandela Barnes, you said you wanted to work with us. We here? But you want to get rid of PACE. I'm on your pace. No, you can't catch up with us. We here. Thank you, Aisha Carr. Thank you, Director Jackson. You know what, President Fernandez? Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know why? Because you understand. And you're the president. And you're a woman. And your voice should matter. It should matter, but you're being quiet. Not by these people, not by the union. Something higher. Right. Something greater. Right. But not greater than us. What's in us. That's it. You wanted to cut me off. No, I wanted to drop the mic, though.
Next, we have Beverly Hamilton Williams.
Beverly Hamilton Williams, Hamilton, Williams. I was trying to pull up the PACE reports because, you know, you have people in this audience and they're like, what's a PACE report? Okay? A PACE report tells you how many suspensions are occurring in the district. It tells you how many weapons are in the school. It tells you how many, I was trying to pull it up here. It tells you how many, here it is, right here. It tells you bullying, battery, assault, disorderly conduct, fighting, gambling, inappropriate personal property, personal threat, possession of drug paraphernalia, and it shows last year that you all had a suspension rate of suspending half the population of black students. Now, because we filed with the United States Department of Civil Rights on you all. Yes, we did, Lord Jesus. Yes, we filed on you all. We just didn't have the children, and we didn't have time to go out and find the children who have been suspended, but they're waiting for us. There's an attorney we've spoken to with the United States Civil Rights Division who is waiting for those children, okay? But anyway, the Committee on Community and Parent Engagement should be advertised more to the parents. I mean, you all do robocalls if their child doesn't come to school. Do robocalls and let them know what PACE is, okay? The committee needs the community to be a part of PACE. And I'm certain with Director Carr caring about children, she has tried to do some type of resolution, okay, while you all shut her out and disenfranchise voters in her district, okay, to bring in more parents with this committee. This committee looks at special needs services. It also looks at the high truancy rate. We sat right down here while Superintendent Posey talked about every good thing in MPS, which is great, and did not say one thing about the 50% truancy in this district. So the PACE committee needs to meet every month, and it needs to be expanded. Okay, and you all going to cut me off in a minute, so I'll stop.
Next, we have Vince Toney.
First name is Vince, last name is Tony, T as in Tom, O-N-E-Y. The reason I'm here, I understand what pesos and what the young lady just said about it. I think that's data that needs to be collected, so the community and parents should understand what's going on in the community if they're not being communicated that. In February, I attended the NAACP board meeting, and Superintendent Posley was there, the president was there, and some members were there. And my position stays the same. I would suggest that Posley step down, and we need to replace, as Deb says, we need to replace the entire board. I was visited North Division. I met with the NAACP president prior to the meeting on that Saturday. We talked about North Division. In January, they announced that less than 20% of the students can read at grade level. That's a problem that hasn't been addressed. I addressed it, came down here at least 4 times trying to get clearance to be accepted at North Division as a mentor or volunteer as a mentor to help with the reading levels. I've been since blocked by the school administration. They won't allow me in there. However, I just finished up a tenure at Rufus King where we are allowed to, with a golf team, go in and help them learn how to play golf. Rufus King will accept me as a volunteer, but I can't get accepted at North Division. I'm a graduate. I didn't graduate from North Division. I went to North Division in 1977, and I joined the Navy afterwards. Also, I attended, I went up to Keefe Avenue Street School and attended a few classes. They allowed me in to see some students and talk to the teachers. The kids can't read. They're reading backwards. There's a lot of dismay in the classroom, particularly a Caucasian teacher. I was in her classroom. It was just a disarray in that classroom. I was able to calm some of the kids down. I came back to volunteer the next week. They told me that I can't volunteer. The principal wasn't there, that he would give me a call. Well, he never called me. I went back up to the school, and he asked me if I would put
Next, we have Bilal Ahmad.
I put the wrong number on there. It should have been K1.
You can't speak to that one, so you have to speak to number 7.
Right, you can only speak to item 7. It looks like a 7 on here.
Okay. Okay, I'll come back to this one because you seem to be trying to mute us on other things.
No,
Look at the timer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Look at the timer in the front of it.
Okay. All right, my name is Bilal Ahmad, last name A-H-M-A-D.
Okay.
Okay, and I have to admit, I haven't been to many of these meetings, maybe only one other, but, and that's a shame because my daughter's a senior now. She's a senior at one of the best high schools in the country, Rufus King. She went to Golda Meir along with the rest of my children. So we have templates of what could be in other schools. And we do not follow them because, to stay on topic with PACE, I'm sure those 2 schools don't have the amount of suspensions, referrals, expulsions that other schools have. But we haven't tried to expand their formulas into some of the other schools. And I would ask why. It's right there. We've had money for years. We're sitting on money, as we heard earlier, but everything is about money. You say it's about money. But, and President Herndon, I'm in your district, and I'm gonna have to say, I'm gonna end this really early, but I'm gonna get in when I need to. Whoever votes against or decides to have Director Carr, anything happen to her, I will actively vote against you and unite to have you ousted from whatever position you have. I voted for some of you on this board, and I don't like what I'm hearing. And that's been recent. And we need to control the teachers' union instead of it controlling this board.
That's right.
Thank you.
Next we have Mike DeGuille, or Guille.
I guess I don't need to spell my name since you spelled it for me.
Just in case I wasn't pronouncing it appropriately.
You did just fine, thank you. I'm very alarmed, and I'm going to speak on a little bit different committee, but I've heard news reports about payments going to someone for providing no services. And the alarm on that goes to the committee on...
Excuse me, sir, according to policy, the speaker has to address the agenda listed in the item. Item 7.
Could I speak on the policy concerning, well, not policy, excuse me, committee? That's what we're talking about. Committees, am I wrong on that?
Madam President,
The Accountability, Finance, and Personnel Committee is
Madam
what I'd like to
President.
address.
Excuse me, could I let Madam Secretary go ahead, please?
Madam President, the topic is possible revisions to the structure of the board's committees, not specific topics that committees consider. So the question of whether or how to restructure the board's committees is the topic at hand.
But we didn't know what committee it was, so you said.
Okay, so
Yeah, Accountability, Finance, and Personnel. And I'd like to reclaim my time, please, if you don't mind. Reclaiming my time.
okay. So could we reclaim his time to speak on the structure? On the
Thank you.
structure.
As a financial professional, I'm alarmed. And I think you need to do some revisions to your Accounting and Finance and Personnel Committee here, because how do you manage to make payments of multi-million dollars with no oversight? It's critical to have proper internal controls. You've just been handed a humongous referendum. The number one thing we can do as servants is protect the money of the citizens that are
He's still,
What are you going to change?
excuse me, sir. Excuse me, so
There's a deficiency.
excuse me, sir.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Again, it's to the structure. So you started out good.
My question is, how can you revise your committee structure to properly consider the oversights of, as a financial professional, I call it control. I would suggest you actually put licensed financial professionals. Is your
Sir, okay.
accountability and efficiency department right now run by a CPA? I mean, you may not be having money go out the door if you had the proper licensed professional. You are actually paying these people enough to get the licensed professionals. You know what a debit and credit is, Mr. Jason?
Excuse me, that's still not sticking to the task at hand.
I'm talking about how the staff.
Okay, with that,
Finance and personnel.
okay, but
There's a deficiency, and I think your audit report from Baker and Tilly addresses this.
your
I'm trying to-
time is up, sir.
Okay, thank you. It says
Thank you.
It wasn't. You need to be more responsible with the money you're giving, particularly since you just got a big referendum. Particularly when there was a per pupil.
The mic is turned off at this time. Thank you. The next is Quentin Claiborne, or Claiborne.
Everybody, Quentin Claybon, Klabon. Oh my God. Usually it's just Ms. Walker Henry and me here. Hey, so just two quick comments. One on the policy committee. One, I hope that you for sure include all 9 people in the policy committee. That potentially could be way too powerful to have just a segment of the board on there. So I hope that you add all 9 if you make that decision. Secondly, talking about PACE, the Parent and Community Engagement Committee. So I'll have to adjust this. There's almost always a race and income disparity in who shows up to these meetings and who calls in. So I do understand that you talk to people outside of this forum, and I do understand you don't want, thousands of people showing up here, especially if they don't represent parents. However, we are twice the size of the next biggest district, and the usual amount of speakers here is 0, which is probably unhealthy. So I just wanted to offer 2 quick suggestions and then possible committee structure. So one, consider shifting the meetings to 6 p.m. That wouldn't make your nights much longer, nor parents' nights, but it would allow first shift parents to grab food or their kids and get over here. I was late today because there was just a little bit of traffic, so consider 6 o'clock. Second, consider changing the online registration form. Instead of it being 3 o'clock deadline, you let people walk in. We had slips coming up here. Just have it be registration end half hour before the meeting. That would allow people who are just being made aware of the meeting to register and call in if they don't have much time. And third, instead of slashing half the parent committee meetings from lack of work and interest, it would be awesome if you would generate interest, which is what we're hearing from some of the board members here. So keep meetings monthly. Do the video invitations, texts, direct newsletter, emails that everyone's been saying. Since there are 8 districts, consider doing 2 a month, every month. So September, October, November, December, and then looping back January, February, March, and May. Hold them at a high school in the region instead of making people drive to central office. Actually tie into the community, have people be able to walk there. Set a theme like safety, reading or teacher retention, hear about successes and failures, and ask for input, and let that guide the rest of the items that occur in the rest of the month. And frankly, make the recurring items monthly too. It's really weird that we don't hear about suspensions until every other month when they're up either 6% or 15%, depending on whom you ask. So I think now's the time to drive interest in the committees rather than just hoping that things will change. And so those are suggestions to help that happen. Thank you.
Next, we have Vaughn Mays.
Hopefully I don't get kicked off because Vaughn Mays, Vaunmays. I'm gonna keep my comments kind of vague. I would say to support and carry the motion that Director Carr put forward. I'm hoping removing this specific committee that she's on isn't an additional attack on Aisha as the head of that committee, that we all feel this is, and other items on the agenda truly represent. Leave Director Carr and her committee alone and keep PACE alive. It would actually work if you would get out of the way and allow it to. There have been viable suggestions and proposals that have been lifted up from residents and parents that have not been acted on in good faith by this board, and that is a failure, and the community is here in representation of a vote of no confidence at this point. While you all play politics, we near the realization of the Republicans and outsiders of this state to come in and take control of the show. So you think you're winning a battle while you're on your way to missing the war. I'm hearing we're not going to be allowed to speak on the item because that's the item I thought I was signing up for, but there's a confusion about the letter and the title and all of that. So that is also egregious. I have, in all the time with this board, I have helped people's campaigns. I have supported folks. I have come to these meetings. I have come to these sessions. Director Carr is the only person who has showed up, who has reached out, who has gone above and beyond, included the parents, included the students, included the facilities, and everything under the sun. And this is the person y'all choose to try to remove?
Sir,
Now, I don't know what policy.
would you please speak to the agenda, please?
I have spoken to the agenda.
Thank you. Next we have Jamel Harris.
Jamel Harris, Harris, zip code 53208. I'm going to try and be polite. On my way here, I read an article about how y'all just cut mental health services for 53206. I also know that in your work through your referendum, you shut out many students, families, and districts across the board to talk down and tell us how things are going to go, because that's the status quo here. Speaking to this item, PACE, it's beyond disgusting at this point that some of you all that are now on your second terms can sit here with a straight face after lying during your campaigns about how much you care about this community, these children, and what stands here in front of us. There have been lies told by many of you on this dais. You are incapable, Marva Herndon, of running this school board. The evidence is appalling at this point. You can't even function in this moment.
Sir, please stick to the topic.
Don't patronize me, okay? You sat here and played games in people's face all night. We ain't playing, okay? You're
and we
consistently
accept that,
trying
sir,
to shut
but-
us out, and I am here today to speak up directly to you,
And that's
Madam
what-
President.
That is
Listen,
fine.
How can you think about cutting off access to parents? Parents, I am a proud father of two highly successful MPS students. But guess what? We're privileged. My children go to McDowell Montessori and Rufus King. They have. They have. Okay? They have.
That's
Their schools
fine.
are deeply engaged. Don't say a word.
Sir, I will not sit here and listen to you to be threatened.
I'm reclaiming my time. Can I please have my time back? We're not
No.
having a conversation because you won't. That's
No.
why you only come to this dais. You won't come talk to the community because you're afraid of the real work that needs to happen. And so are
Sir.
you. So are you today and today. You're incompetent. You're incapable.
What? A recess, please. Recess, please. Recess, please.
If I could say something, I appreciate the presence tonight. First time we've ever had this type of presence, regardless of whatever committee meetings, just to see the presence of people who care about this, who want to be involved, who want to know. I personally want to say thank you. That's the point of being here, to hear from them. Man.
Moving forward, we have a motion on the floor.
That's right, Madam President. We have a motion by Director Carr to return.
There was other speakers.
I believe you have all the speaker slips, Madam Chair. I don't believe we heard from Miss Angela Harris. I know she had a speaker slip.
Okay, we have 3. We heard from Jamel Harris, so there's 2 left. Angela Harris and Montreal King.
Is this thing on? There we go. Angela Harris, Harris. I usually plan really well thought out testimony when I come to these meetings, but it usually falls upon deaf ears. I was sitting here after everything blew up, and I was thinking about one of my favorite quotes from the movie Black Panther. Is from Killmonger. You know, I love me a good villain. And he says that a child will burn down the village in order to feel its warmth. And at this point, I think the community is ready to burn this shit down. It's very frustrating. I've been speaking at PACE committee meetings since 2017. Before people had personal vendettas against the district, I was showing up and advocating for equity. PACE holds equity. PACE holds Black Lives Matter at school. PACE holds anti-racist, bias, and mandated restorative practices. PACE holds all of the important work. And we are sitting here as folks who claim to be allies, sitting here and saying, we want to take away another opportunity for the committee to engage. I'm going to implore you all today to think about ways in which you can engage not just your constituents, not just the folks who look like you and live in your communities, but the folks who look like me, who go to school at my school. I want you to think about how you can engage us. And I want you to think about this. Passion is not aggression. People are up here passionate because they care about these children. Having 6 safeties, 8 safeties in here tonight, these meetings don't never look like this. This is showing me that y'all are scared of us. And how are you scared of us? And if you're scared of us, that means that you are scared of our children. I'm telling you now, I will knock every door to ensure none of you have your seats the next time around if something happened to that one.
Montreal King. Montreal King.
Good evening. My name is Montreal. Last name is Cain. I'm a proud MPS alumni. I taught at Milwaukee Marshall High School for 4 years. I taught at UWM for 9 years. I instituted the Positive Behavior Incentive Solutions program at Milwaukee Marshall because there's not culturally relevance in our classrooms. Everybody don't have a drip. So I taught them, this is how you build rapport instead of suspending children. I came to different schools. I taught 183 different teachers. This is how you relate. And I didn't just do it as an educator. I did it from a parent perspective. Every Monday and Friday, we did restorative practice circles. Some of the videos you guys have on YouTube page, my students produced that at the Makerspace at Marshall High School. So when I tell you I know what I'm talking about, I do. I'm also an MKE fellow. We have the highest graduation rate of African-American males in the United States of America. I'm a mentor at the Running Rebels Community Organization. All of these different folks that we're talking about, it's time for you guys to listen. And the last thing I want you to know is I was in this building in 2002 when I learned the word bureaucracy. It was when all the things that were being said was going over our heads because we didn't understand the process. Well, now we're educated. And we elected certain officials like Aisha Carr to represent us. So I want you all to know specifically when it comes to parent and community engagement committees, it would be extremely irresponsible to cut that budget in half. You wouldn't cut off half of your water supply. You wouldn't cut off half of your food rations. You wouldn't cut off half of child support. So why would you cut off the engagement when we have the highest incarceration rate of African-American males, which populates all of our schools? So in closing, a few things I want you to consider. If you want to travel fast, travel alone. But if you choose to travel far, travel together. Don't be afraid of us. You know, we don't bite, but we have a great appetite. And that's why you see so many people here today. And I want you all to know, tomorrow I'll be at a private school working with 5 boys that are on path to fail. They won't, because a parent and a teacher is allowed into the classroom. And that gentleman that told you he volunteered for North Division, allow him to be in there. So stay in there. I know it's been a rough night. Prayers to all of y'all. And invite us back, all right? Have a good night.
Last, we have Lena Taylor.
Good evening. I'm coming for 3 reasons. The first is I come because I want to support Director Carr. And the reason I come to support Director Carr is not just because when she ran, I supported her, but I'm doing it because I also see the work that she does with our young people, the work that she does in our community. And with all due respect, I appreciate what Director Jackson said. Often you don't see this kind of turnout in your meetings. And what you should wonder is why. And so one of the things that I want to remind you of is that each of you are independently elected. And whether you agree or disagree with one of your colleagues, or whether you like or don't like the tactics or the ways of one of your colleagues, it is really important to remember that one was elected, but 2, the work that they do. And in the end, I am coming too because I work in a job where I see the results of our education system every day. I see individuals who have not graduated. I see individuals who do not know how to present themselves, not just in a court system, but in our community as a whole. And I mean no harm to anyone, because if we don't speak truth, the first step is you got to admit you got a problem. So when we look at our literacy place, our math places, our graduation places, when we look at the generational problems with this, that's why I see them where I see them. So I'm coming to say, what can be done to figure out how to more effectively work together? Instead of literally, I cannot believe that this is the amount of time and energy that is being put on trying to dissolve work that is positive. And then the last thing I'll say is this. You know, I'm not involved in partisan politics anymore because of my job. But when it comes to the plight of our young people, in the work that I have done in the past, I saw that in 2006, we were failing our children. I stood right here to say that we needed to do something different, and it was not received. And I see I'm over time, but please let me finish. I saw that we had not done what we needed to in math, in reading, in graduation rates, and suspensions. So I came to say we should do something different. I was not embraced. I then saw us continue to fail our students, and the number of schools that were failing our kids, I saw it rise in numbers. So I literally tried to do something and give. I was not received. Then my colleagues on the other side of the aisle that I was on tried to do something, and I literally stood with them because we needed to do something different. And we had more schools that failed. And then our then state superintendent changed the standard so that the 55 schools wasn't failing. Listen, we can't spend our way away from this. We have to admit that there is a fundamental crack in what is happening. And as a result, if you fail at your end, they come to my end. And everyone is not thinking about why they come to my end. They just thinking about what to do to make it where they ain't there no more. You know, they not continue to have havoc in our community. So I'll end with, if the bureaucracy is so difficult that we can't put our children on a path to work, we can't put them on a path to literacy, we're not figuring out how to include parents for that, something is broken. And one of the only, and no disrespect, but directors that I've seen that's tried to be extremely creative and think out the box has been Director Carr. I would ask you to please not be dismissive of it, but figure out how to be inclusive of it. Because nothing will change if nothing changes. They call it insanity. If we keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, we're only failing our children more and more and more. God bless you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. At this time, we do have a motion on the floor, correct?
That's
And it
correct.
has been seconded.
That's correct.
But could you read it just to refresh everybody?
Certainly. The motion was by Director Carr to return this item to committee.
Thank you. So at this point, Director Simpson.
Sorry, I just have a clarifying question. So what committee was it on? I just remember it coming to the board. I'm asking what committee the item came before. That's all. I understand we're discussing PACE and the structure of our committee. I'm asking what committee it's going to go before.
It came in the March cycle, and it came as an item of new business.
New business to the board.
New business. So
Okay.
Director Carr's motion would be to send it to committee. It would, with your current committee structure, it would go to SPB. So this item will show up as an item of pending business at your organizational meeting. If it's set aside, it'll go to SPB.
Okay, so it will come before SPB, which is a full board.
A committee
Okay.
of the whole, yes.
So because that, is down the road and we have policy work to do, the person whoever ends up being chair of the LRP, when we do our reorganization, they can start calling policy meetings to get that work done quickly while we work on a restructure of our committees.
Madam Chair, Director Simpson, that's correct. LRP currently meets at the call of the chair, so whoever becomes the chair of LRP can call meetings as often as they wish.
Perfect. I just want to make a little comment. So I personally have always felt like PACE should be a monthly report. But I think the kind of the bigger thing that the board is considering, I know that PACE is getting a lot of attention tonight, but just the need to restructure the committees in general. You know, we've seen how some other districts have a more systematic way of posting the committee so that like the public can see like, oh, this report comes quarterly, or this report I can expect to see, you know, twice a year. Because I know I get calls from people who are asking me, well, when is the ARC committee going to come back and talk again? So I think that it's not, I mean, I know there's a lot of attention on PACE, and I agree it should be every month. I always have. But I think the bigger question is also just that restructuring piece, which I do think is going to take more time to work on. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Madam Secretary, are you making an alternate motion? Okay. Well, with that, we just need to call the roll.
Very well. On the motion by Director Carr to return this item to committee, to send this item to committee, Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Seamson.
Aye.
Director Zombor.
Aye.
And President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes. The motion passes.
Madam Secretary, next item, please.
The next item is the reports of the board's delegates. The first delegate report is that of the delegate to the Head Start Policy Council.
That report is before you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Just reach out.
Next is the President's report.
Madam President, we have 2 other delegate reports. The next delegate report is that of the delegate to CISA 1.
That item is attached to the item, and if you have any questions, you can follow up with me.
Madam President, the next delegate report is that of the delegate to the District Advisory Council.
That report should be before you. I have not seen that report show up, so when we get it, I will make sure that we get that information out to everyone.
Madam President, that report is attached to tonight's agenda.
Next.
The next item is item 9. That is the monthly report of the President of the Milwaukee Board of School Directors.
And that is attached to the agenda. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Madam Secretary, the next report.
That is the last report. The next item would be any unfinished business, and we do not have any unfinished business.
Madam Secretary, are there any new communications or resolutions?
Madam President, as this is the last meeting of the current board year, any new communications, resolutions, or new business for referral will be held to the board's annual organizational meeting, which is scheduled for Tuesday, April 23rd, 2024.
Okay. Madam Secretary, do we have any new business?
Madam President, there are no items of new business for referral. However, we have one item of new business for immediate consideration. That is consideration of and possible action on the initiation of an investigation of concerns and complaints regarding a board member. The recommendation is that the board, 1, waive Board Rule 1.10 in order to give immediate consideration to this item, and 2, determine how it wishes to proceed.
It was board members, not one board member.
I'm sorry. May I have a motion to waive Board Rule 1.10 in order to consider this item? Director Zomber.
I move, what is the rule? 1.17. To waive
1.10.
Oh, okay. I move to waive Board Rule 1.10 to give immediate consideration to the item.
Madam Secretary?
That motion requires a second, Madam Chair.
Second.
Thank you, Director Jackson. Madam Secretary, we also deferred another item.
We need to vote on the waiver of board rule first. So the motion has been made by Director Zombor to waive Board Rule 1.10 in order to give immediate consideration to this item. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Seamson.
Aye.
Director Zombor.
Aye.
And President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes. And then to answer your question, Madam President, we did have another item deferred for closed session. That was item 2 from the Reports and Communications from the Office of Accountability and Efficiency. Action on a request to retire to closed session to confer with legal counsel relative to litigation in which the board is or is likely to become involved.
They did not hear
Madam Secretary, for the sake of efficiency, I will now entertain a motion to consider these two items together in closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Chapter 19.85, paren 1, paren F, 19.85, paren 1, paren D, and 19.85, paren 1, paren G. Does anyone wish to make that motion?
We submit a motion for the investigation of these board members here and.
Director Simpson.
I move that we move to closed session.
I couldn't hear you.
I move that we move to closed session.
And we need a second.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Second?
Who seconded it? Okay.
Garcia.
They couldn't hear.
On the
Madam-
motion by Director Seamson to retire to executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes, section 19.85, parent 1F, D, and G, to discuss these two items in closed session. Director Carr.
Aye.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Director Gokul Gandhi.
Aye.
Director Jackson.
Aye.
Director Leonard.
Aye.
Director O'Halloran.
Aye.
Director Seamson.
Aye.
Director Zombor. And President Herndon.
Aye.
That's 9 ayes, the motion passes.
Madam Secretary, please record the time.
So noted.